Hey there, and welcome back to Transformers War for Cybertron. As you recall, in the last episode, I showed you the first batch of the updated soldiers, those being the neutral, and now we are continuing that trend with the Autobot soldiers. Just like with the neutrals, we got some new characters, new weapons, new abilities, a whole bunch of new stuff to go through. And there are some surprises to be had for sure. So what are we waiting for? Let's just get to it already. I mean, what else are we gonna do? Talk about our feelings? We've got stuff to showcase. We should get this ball rolling and get it going now. Okay, let's get to it. Up first, a new character, the Autobot Soldier / Sniper. Yep, we're starting off the episode with a whole new character. This soldier, much like the neutral variant, was one I was not able to cover in my original video due to his lack of a RoboDef file. But that is no longer a problem, so I can now show him off to you. Well, to start off with, he uses the same model as the neutral variant, but includes key Autobot traits, which are the standard Autobot red color scheme, red energon, and the inclusion of an Autobot insignia on his chest. He's also the most basic design of the soldiers, with all the others being based upon him to one degree or another, usually with the addition of more armor or parts. Well, let's get a look at him, shall we? As you can see, he still retains the same multiple attack stances for his idle animation. This trait will carry over to the other Autobot car soldiers as well. Well, just like the neutral version, this soldier is used in multiple different ways. Way more than the neutral, actually. And his first main usage is as the Autobot Sniper. This character first appears in Chapter 2, Field of War, somewhere near the middle of the chapter. Being a sniper, he is, of course, equipped with the standard Null Ray. He can use melee attacks, but as you probably would have guessed, they are bugged due to a lack of an arm underneath his weapon. Now there is a version of this soldier that can use melee fully, but we'll get to him in a moment. Moving on from that, for his additional movements, he can jump, as well as dash, and that pretty much covers robot mode, actually. Let's now turn our attention to his vehicle mode. Autobot Sniper. Transform! Yeah, it's probably what you expected. It is the same basic car as the neutral, just with the same Autobot specifications I mentioned in robot mode. There's not really a whole lot to show here, visually. It's pretty much just the same car in red. As far as his functionality goes, his weapons are the same standard car machine guns. And if you want to see him from a mobile perspective, he can, of course, drive, jump, dash. He cannot, of course, barrel roll while driving, as you probably figured. Here he is from robot perspective. So that's it for the Sniper variant. However, there's something I want to mention before we move on here. There's actually a version of this soldier with a color scheme not officially seen in-game. At least not fully. And I think you'll all find it very familiar. The turquoise variant. Yep, there is actually an Autobot Soldier that uses the same colors as the neutral soldier. Now, like I said, this character is never officially seen in the campaign. At least not fully. I'll explain more in a bit, but first, let's take a look at him. Let's check alt mode. Yeah, pretty much the same as the neutral. So, yeah, interesting, right? So like I was saying earlier, there is another version of the Autobot Soldier who can use melee fully, and has little traces of turquoise on him, and he's way more common than you might think. And that soldier is the Autobot Car Soldier with arm. Yep, just like with the neutrals, these soldiers are frequently encountered in the Autobot campaign as background characters. And since this version does not come with any weapons, his melee is fully functional. If you could see that at all. And as you can see, he too was just waiting to give somebody a big old friendly bro fist or a super punch in the face. You decide which. Also, going back to what I was referring to earlier, if you turn him around and look at his back, you'll notice a small bit of turquoise on his backpack. Yeah, these guys actually have some of that present. Next time you play through campaign, check the backs of some of the soldiers there. You'll probably find this guy pretty quickly. On that same note, if he is turquoise by default, then why is he red? Well, just like with the neutral armed soldiers, these Autobots have all their colors assigned to them by a single palette texture. Seen here. Right? And if I were to transform him, you'll see his alt mode is still turquoise. I can't exactly say why the palette doesn't affect the backpack, but for whatever reason, it does not. Regardless, the alt mode is the exact same thing as I just showed you. And again, just like with the neutrals, if I were to turn him back into robot, he is now blue. Yep, his colors are randomly changed every time you change form. Let's check him out. Yeah, pretty much the same thing. He also has two additional colors that I can show you. The yellow now, I believe pretty much all these colors are shared with the machine gunners, more or less. And the gray. Definitely the most dreary of the bunch, but it's an option all the same. Now, that's it for the Autobot Soldier with arm, but there are actually some additional variants of this soldier that I can cover. One specific to the Autobots. And one of those is the Autobot Car Soldier with gun. This soldier is, again, used as a background character, most commonly in battlefields. Now, the gun doesn't actually fire, it's just there for show. He can appear as all four of the colors that I previously showed you. And there really isn't anything more to him than that. But if that wasn't enough, there's actually one more soldier that I'll cover here. One who differs quite a bit from this particular soldier, but is just similar enough for me to include here. And that is the Autobot Engineer. Now this guy is the literal definition of blink and you miss him. As far as I know, he only appears in one chapter, that being Chapter 2, Field of War, right where you first encounter the Shotgunner. A couple of him can be seen working in the background on some random machinery. And as you can see, his animation's kinda buggy. His model does not seem to mesh very well with the standard Autobot skeleton, so he's gonna look a little quirky. Well, he differs quite a bit from the standard Autobot Soldier. For one, he is quite a bit darker than his counterparts. His whole body type is just different. I think he's actually the same type of soldier you see in the opening cutscene to the game. I think there's also concept art of it as well. But he's quite a bit different. In fact, if you were to turn him around here, you'll see he's got wheels on his back. So he's certainly not a carbon copy of the standard soldier, that's for sure. I think the shoulders are a bit different too. Kind of a blend of the standard car soldier and his own thing. Kind of an in-between, I guess. Yeah, his animation's really strange. What's weird is if he walks, he looks fine. I guess the idle attack animations aren't really working for him. So, that's a weird problem. Not really sure what I could do about that. Well, he doesn't come with any weapons or abilities, so I guess we just jump to his vehicle mode. Which is the exact same thing as the Autobot Sniper. So, nothing to mention there. And I believe that will do it for the standard Autobot Soldier. Whew. Quite a lot to show for just one guy. But we're only just getting started here. Let's get on to the next one. Up next, the Autobot Machine Gunner. The most common of the soldiers you will encounter are once again reskins of the neutral variation, with the same distinctions that I mentioned for the standard soldier. Now, as far as his design goes, he's much more buffed up than his standard counterpart, with the inclusion of a new chest plate, bulkier shoulders, new armor for his left arm, and some new armor on his hips and legs. Well, why don't we turn him around here? Another feature to mention is that the armor textures for the Autobot soldiers are actually double that of the neutral one. So instead of 1024 by 1024, it is now 2048 by 2048. Interesting that they have high resolution textures for the Autobot armor and not the neutral. But whatever. Well, let's move on to his weapons. The machine gunner is, of course, naturally equipped with the Neutron Assault Rifle. The Energon Battle Pistol. And he can even spawn in with the Photon Burst Rifle on very rare occasions. Though it seems to be a very rare few who actually use this weapon. He can use melee, but as you would expect, it is buggy due to the lack of an arm underneath the weapon. As far as additional movements go, he can jump and dash. You know, the basic stuff. And that about sums up robot mode for you. So, let's go check out his vehicle mode. Autobot Machine Gunner. Transform! Yeah, it is pretty much the exact same car as the Autobot Sniper. Nothing really new here to mention. It's pretty much all the same as you can see. Same appearance. Same weapons. Nothing really different. But if you want to see him from a gameplay perspective, here he is from Robot.
Gun it and run it! I got the speed we need!
And as you are likely all aware, he comes with free additional color variations, including the blue, which is, again, the same color as used by the pallet soldiers. The yellow. And the green, which is the only color variation not used by a pallet soldier. And that is it for all the standard color variations. But there are actually a few additional variations that you may not be as familiar with. These following colors are all seen on background versions of the machine gunner that you never actually end up fighting. And they're, well, unique. The first of which is the full gray soldier. Now this variation, as well as the ones that follow, are most notably encountered in Chapter 3, in the cutscene where you encounter Brawl, and a few make an appearance in Chapter 4 as well, but they're most noticeable in Chapter 3. In fact, if you watch this scene closely, you might notice something interesting, but more on that in a moment. Let's just get a quick turnaround of him here. Yeah, pretty basic. However, the next batch of soldiers I'm going to show you, I don't really know how to best explain these guys, so best if I just show you. The red-blue soldier. Now this one was a true puzzler for me. you'll see several of this guy if you watch the Brawl cutscene in Chapter 3 very closely. Now, by initial viewing, nothing seems too strange, does it? It just looks like a soldier with a different secondary color. Well, that's what I thought as well. But take a look at this. This is the version you see in the cutscene right here, and then there's this one. And you see the problem? The color assignments don't follow the traditional sense. In fact, I had to do a texture mod just to replicate what you see in the cutscene. For the life of me, I was baffled on how these guys actually even worked. Until I did a little investigating, and I now know why this guy functions so differently. His armor uses the palette texture that the armed soldiers do. That's how this guy works. The legs and head area, everything you see that's red is a primary color. And the blue area is assigned via the palette. And that's how this guy works. I just went on a whim. I'm like, maybe this is it. And it was. Because I noticed there were no green soldiers in that cutscene. Only the ones you see with the palette. So that was the answer to this question. Well, let's just turn him around here. I gotta say though, the color combination is very nice. Yeah, it's a very distinctive color combination. I really like it. Now if you were to transform him, he would end up being red. At least by my deduction. Seeing as how the standard soldiers would still transform into a turquoise vehicle, logically speaking, I think the same would apply here. So, we've already seen this guy in detail, so there's nothing to show here. They're unique though, huh? Well, he has two additional color variations you can encounter. The gray-red, basically an invert of what you're used to. Still the same red vehicle, as you would expect. And the yellow-red. There is also a full red variation, but that's basically the default variation, and we've already covered that. So, no need to examine that. And, yeah, that's gonna cover it for the Autobot Machine Gunner. A lot more to him this time, huh? Okay, well, let's roll on to the next one, shall we? Up next, the Autobot Protector. This particular soldier first makes his appearance in Chapter 2, Fuel of War, somewhere near the end of the chapter. For the most part, he shares the same basic model as the Neutral Protector, but with one key distinction. Instead of having 3 spikes on his back, he now has 2 rings. So they're not exact reskins like the majority of the other soldiers. Aside from that, they share the same color scheme of white and gray. Let's turn him around. Yeah, he's a very sparkly, glowy bot. Very glowy. Well, as far as weapons go, he is typically equipped with a photon burst rifle, or the Energon Battle Pistol. Though the Photon is the most common of the two. He can use melee, but it's bugged. As far as movements go, he can jump and dash. And honestly, that about covers it for robot mode. Yeah, not a lot to it. Well, let's go check out his vehicle mode. Autobot Protector. Transform! As you can see, it is the same standard Autobot car, just in white. Not a lot going on here. For weapons, he has the same standard car machine guns. And if you want to see him mobile, here's Robot.
Weapons armed! Engines revving!
But that's actually not all for this guy. Believe it or not, he actually does have a very rare, or totally unused, color variation. One that I still have had no success in finding anywhere in the actual campaign. And that variation is probably one you will all recognize. And that is the turquoise variation. Yep, this version of the Protector is the same color as the majority of the neutral soldiers we've seen. Now, from what I've been told, this particular variant of the Protector can only be encountered right at the beginning of Chapter 3. However, despite my numerous attempts to find confirmation of this, I have had no luck in doing so. I may have come across it once while playing on my own, but I can't say that for certain. It's either super rare and I just haven't found it yet, or it's totally unused. Regardless, let's get a quick turnaround of him. And let's just check out alt mode. Yeah, same thing as the bonus car soldier. So, nothing really to show here. And that should do it for the Autobot Protector. I'm still quite curious about this variation. Ah well. Let's head on to the next one. Next up, the Autobot Rocketeer. Once again, this soldier shares the same basic model as his neutral counterpart, but with the typical Autobot features, including the same high-resolution armor textures as the machine gunner. As far as his design distinctions go, he has a new chest plate, new taller shoulders, a new left arm with some exhaust ports of some kind, and some new armor for his hips and legs. Well, as far as weapons go, he is of course equipped with his typical Thermo rocket launcher. His melee is functional, but still suffers from the typical bug. For his movements, he can jump and dash. Yeah, not a whole lot to mention for his robot mode, apparently. His vehicle mode, while about the same as the machine gunner, does have a new transformation. So let's check that out. Autobot Rocketeer, transform! Yeah, pretty much the same thing as the neutral. Even the missing transformation sound is carried over. There's nothing really new to mention as far as appearance goes, but his weapons are different, as this guy now has the truck rockets. And if you want to see him from a gameplay perspective,
Let's tag him and bag him! Time to rock and roll!
and that's it for the red Rocketeer. However, that's not his only color variation. Just like with the neutral, he does come with yet another color variation. One that is more uncommon. And that is the black. Now, in case you weren't aware, this soldier is only encountered in the rocket barriers, where they use a specific rocket barrage attack, which I'm still, unfortunately, unable to replicate. You first encounter these guys near the end of Chapter 2, but they do make a noticeable appearance in Chapter 3 as well. Now, I believe this Rocketeer is a slightly different color from the neutral, though I can't say that with 100% certainty. In any case, he's probably my favorite color combination of any soldier. The black color combined with the red energon just makes for a really sweet combination. Well, let's turn him around. Nothing new to mention with regards to weapons or abilities, so let's just head to vehicle mode, which looks just as cool. Now, these guys never actually transform, so you're never going to actually see this in game, but if you could, they'd look like this. One more thing to mention, however. The Autobot Rocketeer actually has a third color variation. One that I totally missed in my original video. Me. If you can actually believe that. One that is quite unique in just where it shows up. And that variation is the white. Now, this color variation only seems to show up in 2 maps in the entire game. The first of which is Chapter 2, Fuel of War. You'll randomly come across this guy near the beginning of the chapter. And the other is the Remnant Escalation map. I have no idea why this guy exists at all, but he does. I honestly didn't even know this guy existed until I came across him in an escalation match. So, woe to Barricade for missing out on this. Well, let's look over him. And let's go check out his vehicle mode, which looks about the same as the Protector. although the Protector might be a little bit brighter. I'm not too sure. Yeah, surprising, isn't it? Well, that will about do it for the Autobot Rocketeer. Let's rock on to the next one. Up next, the Autobot Shotgunner. As you have come to expect, this soldier shares the same model as the neutral Shotgunner, just with the added Autobot logos, red energon, standard red color, and high-resolution armor textures. I've noticed that he seems to be the smallest of the car soldiers. I always thought he was bigger than what he actually is, but in any case, as far as his design distinctions go, he has a unique chest with a large, whatever that is, with some smaller shoulders than the typical car soldier. He also has a new shield of some kind on his left arm. And he's got fairly similar legs to the Rocketeer. Well, that's it for appearance. For weapons, he is naturally equipped with the EMP shotgun, his melee functions like all the others. Operational, but bugged. He can also toss flat grenades as well. He can also do the typical jump and dash movements. And that honestly just about covers robot mode, actually. Now his alt mode, of course, is exactly the same as the machine gunner, but his transformation is all new. So let's check that out. Autobot Shotgunner. Transform! He has a much more aggressive transformation now. Weirdly, he's still missing some vehicle sounds, but he actually has a transformation sound unlike the Rocketeer. Well, he has the same default car weapons, and as you know, his transformation back to robot is new as well. One final thing to note is that this guy's never too far away from his trusty overshield, which, just like the neutral, is totally screwed up. I still have no idea why. What's weird enough, though, is that in a cutscene where you first encounter him, you can see the overshield working quite properly. So I honestly have no idea why that version works and this one doesn't. Anyway, let's go check him out from a gameplay perspective. You'll notice, though, that the overshield works fine in vehicle mode. It's strictly a robot problem.
Reporting for duty! Ready to roll!
And that will do it for the Autobot Shotgunner. Let's go gun on to the next one. Up next, the Autobot Cloaker. Finally, a new character to show off for a change. The Cloaker is probably my favorite soldier as far as gameplay goes. He first makes his appearance in Chapter 2, right after you destroy the Canyon Cruiser. He strikes the standard Autobot Red, and he is a super lean bot. I honestly question how something this lean can even transform, but regardless, let's get a nice look at him, shall we? You may notice he has an idle stance, very similar to Sideswipe. It's not 100% the same, but you can see the similarities. Well, onto his weapons. He is, of course, equipped with his standard plasma cannon. And, interestingly enough, he has a full arm underneath his weapon, which means melee is fully functional. Could you imagine finding these guys and they're running at you with swords? That'd be awesome. And probably a little scary. And of course, he wouldn't be a cloaker if he couldn't cloak.
Activate cloaking.
This time with the appropriate animation. And he can keep his cloak active even after firing, because he uses the AI cloak ability. Now, the cloaker doesn't actually have a functional vehicle mode. In fact, if you attempt to transform as him, you'll crash. What's weird is that as far as I can tell, all the files exist for a functional vehicle mode. It has animations for it and everything. So why exactly it doesn't work, I can't say. However, it does not go totally unused in the game. It can in fact be seen at the start of the final chapter, driving around on some roadways, just like the Brute. Still, it would have been cool if it was fully functional all the same. There is one more unique trait that I could show about this character, which will require me to go into a player perspective. If you listen, you'll hear that he makes the cloaker sound effects as he runs. Now that's cool and all, but that's not what I want to address. If you equip him with the dodge ability, he does the snazzy cloaker dodges. Ain't that neat? He has one for each direction. So now you can get the whole cloaker experience. You can cloak, charge your weapon, and skip around like a madman.
Catch me now, Decepticon. All weapons cool. Ah!
Yeah, you can probably see why this guy's my favorite to play as.
Let's see you shoot me now.
Alright, that will do it for the Autobot Cloaker. Let's sneak on to the next one.
Can't hit what you can't see.
Next, the Autobot Flyer. Now honestly, this is a character we've pretty much covered fully in the neutral video. But we're gonna run through him all the same. So, as you well know, the Autobot Flyer shares the same model as the neutral one, just with the standard Autobot features that I previously mentioned. And, as you can plainly see, he too has his leg thrusters now, unlike in my original video, in which those were not present, due to being a destructible mesh. But that is all behind us now. Well, let's check him out here. Well, for weapons, he is naturally equipped with the X12 Scrapmaker, which is frequently used in junction with a hover ability. And once again, his melee is fully functional, despite being an air-based unit. He has some distinct strafe animation for his movement. So that's nifty. As far as other movements, he can jump. And that is about the extent of the Autobot Flyer's robot mode, actually. So, let's head on to his vehicle mode. Autobot Flyer. Transform! Yeah, as you can see, it is the same vehicle mode as the neutral Flyer, just with the standard Autobot distinctions. Pretty much about the same thing, just in red. Well, why don't we just get a look at him? Still very gappy. One thing I did notice is that if you look at his belly, no red marks, which I just found out actually. It doesn't have those same red marks that the neutral one did, which is weird. Must be a strictly neutral-based thing, but the Autobots do not have it. That's about the extent of his appearance. Well, why don't we take a look at his functionality here. He can strafe around like any typical jet. He can ascend quickly and descend quickly. He can do a barrel roll. You know, pretty much an exact replica of the neutral jet, but with one critical distinction. You know how the neutral jet moved at a tank's pace? Well, the Autobot Flyer flies like any standard jet should. Yeah, I have no idea why the neutral moves so darn slow, but for whatever reason, it does. Well, moving on to weapons. He has the standard jet machine guns. And he has an updated bombing run attack, which now has the appropriate fire rate.
Going ballistic!
Real hailstorm, isn't it? Well, if you want to see him from robot perspective.
Deploying on foot! Blasting off!
And that will do it for the Autobot Flyer. More or less a rehash of the neutral one, but with some new things to show off at least. Alright, well, that's it for this guy. Let's soar on to the next one. Up next, the Autobot Brute. Yet another character who has been essentially fully covered in the neutral video, but still one I will nonetheless cover all the same. Well, as you could probably gather, the Autobot Brute shares the same model as the neutral Brute, but with the same Autobot distinctions as I have already mentioned. He really only has one unique distinction. If you look on his back, you'll see his backpack is semi-colored, which is a insignificant but noteworthy distinction. Not much beyond that, though. Well, for his weapons, he is, of course, equipped with the mighty Warhammer, which allows him to use his unique melee attacks. He looks like he's riding a pony if you move it backwards, though. Right? As you know, he is also equipped with a shield. But, just as you have seen with the neutral, it is now a full-fledged ability, functioning just like Grimlock's shield in Fall of Cybertron, in that you hold the trigger down to keep it active. And, just like the neutral, he too can bring the hammer down. He can also equip the Thermo rocket launcher, which, as you can see, kind of bugged out. I honestly thought that in-game it replaced his full arm, but no, I actually checked campaign and this is actually right. It's supposed to be buggy like this, apparently. So, whatever. Well, for additional movements, he could pretty much only jump. And as far as variations go, the only noteworthy one appears in the K-On! Prison Break cutscene, which is without a backpack, and a simple clip of that here should suffice. And, yeah, that's about it for the Autobot Brute's robot mode. Let's head to his vehicle mode. Autobot Brute, transform! Yeah, as you would expect, it is the same truck as the neutral Brute, just in the standard Autobot colors. Still a very cool vehicle. Even though he never actually uses this vehicle form, it too can be seen in the final chapter, driving around on some roads. Though it appears to be a lot bigger than what he actually turns into here. Regardless, let's turn him around here, why don't we? Yeah, pretty simplistic. And as you would imagine, he has the same vehicle weapons. And if you want to see him mobile, he can, of course, drive, jump, dash, oh, and did I mention, he still handles terribly. I mean, seriously, just look. It's so bad. Oh, my stars. Let's check robot.
I've got you! Yeah! Ha! Ha!
And that will do it for the Autobot Brute. Let's go smash on to the next one. Up next, a totally new character for a change, the Autobot Holo Brute, aka Zeta Prime's Energon clones. Now this was a character I was unable to cover in my original video due to time constraints and being oblivious to this particular version of the Holo Brute. But since I'm now aware of this variant, I can now show him off to you. So the Holo Brute, as you know, is only encountered at the end of Chapter 3 in campaign. They are, however, an extremely common foe in Escalation. But moving on from that, they are essentially a holographic version of Zeta Prime, with a weaker version of the Brute AI. They have the same colors as Zeta Prime, but with Brute-esque animations, hence the buggy shoulder on his left. Well, for weapons, he wields the holographic ceremonial staff, with Brute-based attacks. And just like his standard counterpart, he can bring down his weapon for an area of effect attack. For additional movements, he can jump, and that's it. Yeah, not a lot for robot mode. However, it may surprise you to know that he actually has an alt mode too, but it's probably not what you're expecting. So let's check it. Autobot Holo Brute. Transform! Yeah, it is the same truck as the standard Brute, just in Zeta Prime colors. And it isn't holographic, so that's strange. Well, let's turn him around. I really like these colors. It's a nice combination on this truck. Well, as you would expect, he has the same weapons as the Brute, those being the truck rockets. And if you want to see him mobile, here he is from Robot. That will do it for the Autobot Holo Brute. Nice to see something totally new for a change, right? Alright, well, on to the next. Up next, the Autobot Titan. As you would expect, the Autobot Titan is pretty much an exact duplicate of the neutral Titan. The only difference from him having red energon is his color scheme, which is now blue and yellow, as opposed to the vibrant red and yellow. Aside from that, though, he's pretty much exactly the same. Well, let's look him over. In case you didn't know, the Titan model in general is pretty much just a buffed up version of the Brute, just with some additional armor pieces. Most notably, the cannons on his back, which, if you've seen the neutral video, know that those don't apply to alt mode at all. Well, for weapons, he only has his trusty ion displacer turret. His melee is, again, shared with the Brute, which is buggy, considering what he's wielding. Yeah, you really would think he would have unique animations for a melee attack, but he doesn't. His movement capabilities are pretty limited. He can only jump while he wields his giant gun. If he were to drop it, however, he kinda gets a little glitchy, especially when you move him. So much so that it causes his head to regurgitate inside his own body. You could probably tell I really like saying that word. And even without the gun, he still moves at a snail's pace. But without the gun, he can double jump, and nothing else. Well, while we have his gun down, let's take a look at his vehicle mode. Autobot Titan. Transform. Yep, same alt mode as the Autobot Brute, just in different colors. Kind of similar to the Holo Brute's colors, huh? Yeah. Interesting thing is that there are indications in the game's files that point to Brawl's alt mode being assigned to this guy, hence the similar turrets on his back. But I guess that was changed and he's now a truck. Well, let's look him over. Yeah, in any case, not a lot to say that hasn't already been said for the Brute. For weapons, he has the same standard truck rockets. and his vehicle functionality is exactly the same as the Brute. But let's see some gameplay of that all the same. And some of Robot.
You wanna play? Let's play! Let's rock and roll!
Alright, and there you have the Autobot Titan. There's only one more character to go. Let's lock and load and get to him. And last, but certainly not least, the Autobot Tank. I'm sure we all remember this behemoth. You first encounter him in Chapter 3 as a boss outside Zeta Prime's vault. He actually has quite a few new features that I wasn't able to cover in my original video. We'll get to those in a moment, but first, let's run through tank mode real quick. Well, the tank features a primary dark gray color, with some small stripes of red for his secondary color. And he's a big tank. A really big tank. I mean, just look at the size of those guns. Well, why don't we turn him around here? You'll notice he has a big gap in his back here. That is where his fuel cell should be. But, as you know, destructible meshes do not load in on playable characters. Still no fix for that, unfortunately. Well, let's get on to some new features. Starting with some new weapons. The first being the heavy tank cannon, which is obviously not the same as the standard tank cannon. It's way more powerful, it can fire 4 rounds before it has to reload, and it actually has animations now. You can also kind of use his tank repulse ability. But it's really quirky. You have to assign it to the guided missile ability just to get it to show up. But doing that actually allows you to move his turrets around and aim them. So that's a cool feature. Now, his movements are pretty limited due to his size, but he can jump, kinda, and despite the absurdity of it all, he can do the tank spin, which, really looks absurd, doesn't it? But it works. Well, if you want to see some gameplay of him, this is what you will see by default. Nothing but his shadow. In order to even see this guy properly, you have to have a scale changing command that will make him visible, like so. And even then you can't see much. Well, let's go clunk around, shall we? He drives way faster than he should be able to. Oh, this is rich. Oh my goodness. I love this. Isn't this great? It's cool. Very impractical. But cool. Eh. Oh, I would have loved to have played this in multiplayer just once. Would have been amazing. Eh. So yeah, that's the tank's vehicle mode for you. Quite a quirky glitch fest, isn't he? Well, with that out of the way, we can now move on to the robot mode, which has had some quite substantial changes from when you last saw him. So, let's check it out. Autobot Tank, transform. Behold, the Autobot Tank Soldier's robot mode. Now, as you can see, the tank is missing a lot of its armor, because, as you know, destructible meshes do not load in when you play as a character that has them, most noticeably on the chest and arms. That said, though, let's get a nice turnaround of him. His turning is very clunky. If you turn him too fast, he's going to be doing a 180 before you know it. Well, let's get on to some new stuff. Starting off with his weapons. Yes, I actually got them working this time. Let's start with his default weapon, the heavy cannon. This gun is essentially the magma frag launcher, with the only difference being you can't manually detonate the grenades. His secondary weapon is even more deadlier than this, and that is his Gatling gun. Wait until you see this. Yeah! How was that? It pretty much fires a constant barrage of nucleon shock cannon fire. Now, as far as melee goes, attempting to use his melee attack will cause you to crash. However, in place of this, you can assign him his repulse ability, which sends out a disabling shockwave that slows and damages your enemy. As far as additional movements go, he can't really do anything besides walk. So no jumping or dashing or anything like that. And since we've already covered his vehicle operations, let's check out some robot gameplay. So again, just like in tank mode, this is what you will see by default. Nothing. Yeah, the character is so big there's not even a camera angle that supports him. You can kind of see him if you tilt the camera all the way down, but it's still less than ideal. So, in order to actually see this guy properly, you have to use the key binding again. And now we can move him around. You may notice that his walking animations are somewhat similar to Bruticus from Fall of Cybertron. I can't help but wonder if they kind of reused animations from this guy and used them for inspiration for Bruticus. Who knows? Oh man, this is satisfying.
Wakes you up, doesn't it?
I'm gonna do it again. Also, I should mention, he lacks any animation for turning back into vehicle, so if you were to do so, he just poofs back into tank mode, even though he is seen using such an animation in his intro cutscene. And that is about it for the Autobot Tank. I know, it's a real shame we can't see him in his full armored glory. Or can we? Truth be told, We can. Behold! The Autobot Tank in his fully armored state. Yeah, isn't this amazing? We gotta give huge thanks to wdred and lrdiswu for this, as they have gifted us the sight of this glorious beast. None of this would have been possible without them. So send them some love. They deserve it. But wait a minute! Barricade! You just said destructible meshes don't load in on playable characters. So how does this work? Tell us, you glorious con, you! Well, first of all, thank you for that generous compliment. Since you were so nice, I will answer your question. And the answer is actually quite simple. The armor on this version of the tank is not destructible. That's right, it's a completely different model. The model I am showing you now is used as a cinematic model for his appearance in the boss battle cutscene. That one is fully armored. The same can be said of the Flyer I showed you. Both use a model with the missing parts included. So that is why I'm able to show you this guy in his fully armored glory. Well, now that we've covered all that, why don't we get a nice look at him? I'm sure you'll notice that his torso is no longer bare and is decently armored up. He actually uses some textures from his vehicle mode in his robot mode. Some on the chest, some on the legs. Most of it's probably seen on the back. You can see he actually has an arm now, as opposed to those silly little stubs he had in the previous model, which is strangely still accurate to the model used in-game. There's his big bunch of bat kibble. You can also see that his gun is kind of clipping through his arm there. Kind of correlates to the fact that the game model doesn't actually have arms and has those weird stubby things. Here's a better look at his gun, which I'm pretty sure is taken straight from his tank cannon. Yeah, he's a beauty, isn't he? Let's show him with all his weapons and abilities just for the hay of it. Yeah, wicked, right? And just for the heck of it, let's see some gameplay footage of this version of the tank. Alright, with that, I do believe we have covered all of the updated Autobot Soldiers.
Let's finish this!
And there you have the updated Autobot Soldiers. I hope this was well worth the wait. I'm so sorry this took so long, but life happened and things got in the way. But at least it's done now, right? Well, I'm gonna take this time to thank some fellow modders. wdred and lrdiswu, of course, for their help in everything, really. So much of the new abilities and features come courtesy of them. You guys are freaking lifesavers. I can never thank you enough for your help. I also want to thank StealthSquare for the reused footage I used from the previous video, because re-recording that tank's transformation seems to be impossible as of this moment, so I reused it from my old video. And with the Autobots now complete, we now move on to the last batch of soldiers, the Decepticons. Now they should be out way faster than the Autobots, because I pretty much have all I need as far as abilities go. I think there's just one character I need to look into and getting set up properly, but this should take way less time. I'm gonna try and put a priority on that, get it out fast, because you deserve it after being so patient with this. Again, I'm so sorry this took so long. And that will do it for this episode. I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope this was worth the wait. These things take a lot of work, but again, life happened. But now it's done. Hopefully I won't have to redo this again. I don't think I will, but thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video where we tackle the Decepticon soldiers. Till then, later!